Now, with the owner operator model, you are running this business full time. So essentially, you don't have a job. Some franchisors will require you for the first 6 to 12 months to be an owner operator. So what you're really investing in is not just financially, but it's sweat equity, right? It's your time, it's your commitment to the business. So what good is growth if you're not going to be profiting from it?
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast, where you can escape the corporate trap through franchise ownership. Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the Franchise Guide.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide, the show where we help corporate executives experience time and financial freedom via franchising. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to continue with the series. This is 4 or 5. We're going to talk about 3 ownership models. And I've talked about this before, but I've tweaked it. I've been talking to some people, kind of what I'm hearing from franchisees, from franchisors, and just from people in the business. I wanted to talk about it because this is also a little bit of a mindset shift here. But yeah, this is something that comes up all the time. And there's a lot of different terms and some of them mean the same thing, but I wanted to provide clarity to anyone listening in today. So today it's really 3 models of franchise ownership. So let's start with the traditional model. I call this the owner operator model. Now, with the owner operator model, you are running this business full time. So essentially, you don't have a job. Some franchisors will require you for the first 6 to 12 months to be an owner operator. So that's something you want to figure out in the very beginning. Do you offer semi-absentee or part-time ownership or not? That's something we would work on together for anyone in the families that I work with. And that owner-operator model, I always say, is you're full-time in the business. This is how I ran my first business. And I learned everything about the business. I was sales, marketing, bookkeeping, and a technician. Did the actual work myself, from anything that needed to get done, the dealing with customers, cancellation, bookkeeping, all that kind of stuff. And the way I look at the owner operator is that you're running it full time, but you're getting a better appreciation of the business because you're wearing all the hats. So that is number one, really get that added benefit of learning the business, wearing all the hats, understanding everyone's roles, not just learning it from the manual that you're given or through some videos, but actually performing all the functions in the business. I tend to see owner operators scale relatively quickly because this is all they're doing. There's no distraction from a job, boss calling you, conference call, last minute training or event you have to attend. You're able to dedicate 100% of your time. You are obviously want to grow this thing as fast as possible because you don't have any other income coming in as you did from the job. So you're trying to get this scaled up. So what you're really investing in is not just financially, but it's sweat equity, right? It's your time, it's your commitment to the business. You get to decide what role you want to play. So you may love sales, and after running the business the first 6 months, you may say, I love sales, but I'm going to hire a full-time salesperson. Given the time involved for maybe the meetings and the travel, I'm going to stick to networking at the local chamber event. And that's the beauty of a business. You pick and decide what roles you want to play in that business. So you're paying with sweat equity. And another advantage that I noticed too is you're keeping the expense and the investment lower because you don't have the general manager salary. It could be 50, 75, 100,000 salary, whatever you're paying that person. And these are all numbers, right? You have, if there's benefits, payroll taxes, all that stuff that to be factored in. So you're keeping the investment lower. The item 7, as we talked about in the previous episode, your pro forma is going to be less. Some models don't need any other staff. There are single employee models that you can run on your own where your technicians are 1099. So you're really keeping the expense to the minimum, maybe working from home and just having essentially a marketing expense, and subcontractors are paid after the job is completed and paid for. That's something to look at. It's not for everyone. Some people do not have the ability to leave their jobs, and that's okay. It is a requirement for some brands, and that's something you want to figure out in a quick way. When people say, how do I know it's a good fit? It's not a good fit if the brand requires you to be full-time and you can't be full-time. On a rare occasion, I just throw this in there are brands that will allow you to bring on that manager, but they will be an equity owner, 25, 50% owner in the business. Sometimes that is allowed. Very rare, but it's come up before. But that is an owner operator. So if you have the ability, this is actually My recommendation for those that want to scale quicker, again, it doesn't have to be the case. Not all the brands allow it, but it definitely gives you the better appreciation of learning the business, especially if it's an industry you've never been involved in. Because, hey, you don't need experience. You do need the skill set. The franchisor will take care of you. Then you have semi-absentee with what they call real operator or a GM in place. Now, this is something where you're you're going to be paying a lot of money for this person, but someone that has really demonstrated working maybe for other brands or was a manager for multiple departments that was able to scale, cut back expense, grow the business. So this is going to be where semi-absentee, you're not involved full-time in the business. Maybe you're keeping the job, or maybe you're just involved part-time, but this operator really is going to be involved in the business. You're going to be paying them a much higher salary. They're going to have a lengthy resume. They've really had to kind of proven to you that they can actually do this. They're essentially functioning as an owner. They've kind of been in your shoes. They're getting involved in hiring and firing and things like that. That's one way. You're still going to be involved at a certain capacity, but that person really is spearheading the business, running the day-to-day, and they're getting compensated via a higher salary. But this is definitely a hire where you're getting a lot of references and referrals, and they have a lengthy track record of doing this for other businesses throughout various industries. My favorite model, and this is something that, and there's different approaches that I ran it with, was kind of an investor operator or hybrid model. And I didn't start off with this model initially. I was an owner operator that switched to this after a couple of years. These models are for people that are essentially the owner is involved as much as possible, and they're putting a general manager in place that will own a percentage of the business. I did phantom equity. Phantom equity was a percentage of the profits. You could do percentage of the overall business. The difference is when you go to sell the business and they own 25%, they would get 25% of the proceeds. So something to consider in what you're most comfortable with. But with this model, the difference here is you're involved. It could be part-time capacity. You're doing everything you can to get them up and running, and then really just kind of figuring out my camera switch here, kind of figuring out, okay, they're going to get a percentage of the profits. So why is that crucial? That manager is going to do whatever they can to grow the business and keep the expenses less. Now that they're getting a percentage, just say that's 25% of every dollar in profit, they're going to make those decisions. Do I really need to add to marketing? Do I really need this additional employee? Is that something we can automate with AI or via email? Or can we divvy up the functions amongst the staff we have? I got to grow this, and now I have the added incentive. So they're going to do whatever it takes to grow the business, which growing a business is easy if you're not making money, right? So they want to grow this business and be profitable and make the money. So they're going to treat this business more like an owner. And this is crucial because at the end of the day, I was listening to an interview where the gentleman had $1 million business and said they scale from $1 million in revenue to $5 million. They said that they were making in that process the same net income on that 1 million versus the 5 million. So what good is growth if you're not going to be profiting from it? And some of those difficult decisions may be to cut the client that is taking up 80% of your time and maybe some lower margin business, ways to automate things like AI. I use AI in my business. I don't charge for our services, but on the flip side, I want to be able to get back to people right away. So if 5 people message me at the same time, the AI can answer basic questions, rescheduling and stuff like that, point you to the right podcast to take a look at. So it doesn't take the place of me, but it takes some of the admin off of me, cutting my expense so we can continue to run the podcast and offer the service at no cost directly to you. So those are ways to take advantage. So the 3 types of ownership, we'll review them again. It's the owner-operator full-time model, semi-absentee with a real operator, putting that person, high-end elite employee in place. And then we have the investor-operator hybrid model, which is the model I shifted to later on, where you have that general manager that has skin in the game, whether it be phantom equity or underlying equity, running a day-to-day, which I think maybe it's not initially, but it's something you transition to like I did. I didn't know what the future brought and how quickly I wanted to scale. And I just met the right person at the right time. And that person, the mistake I made was we did annual bonus, which is a mistake on my end. We switched it up to quarterly because that person didn't know where we stood till the end of the year. And it's better to incentivize quarterly, as we did the reconciliations and things like that, updated the quarterly P&Ls as well as the monthly. That's one mistake I made that I encourage you not to make that same mistake. Thanks again for joining. I would love to figure out which type best fits your situation. We could book a call and figure that out on our intro call, in that 20-minute call. ggthefranchiseguide.com. Talk to you guys soon. See ya.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.